Welcome to Perspectives Online and on air from WFSU Public Media. I'm Tom Flanigan. This program, of course, recorded via Zoom, was pre-recorded on Tuesday, October 20th for playback on Thursday, October 22nd. The show will appear on both WFSU FM and also on our WFSU Public Media Facebook page. Well, Innovation Park, located on the city's southwest side, an actual neighbor to our WFSU studios, is by no means new, although it still may be new to some folks here in this area. Innovation Park's genesis actually dates back nearly 50 years, and that's when local elected officials got together. They wanted to provide a dedicated space to accommodate new business and industry. Even back then, the mantra was, gosh, we depend so much on state government and higher education. Let's branch out and try to diversify the old portfolio if we could. And of course, many American communities were also around this time having projects to build industrial park space. So this was really nothing out of the ordinary for that time period. In 1978, the Florida legislature authorized the formation of the Leon County Research and Development Authority. That's the governing body for Innovation Park. The park itself opened in 1982, and I can attest to that personally. I was actually there for the groundbreaking ceremony covering it for a commercial radio station here in town. And I remember all the hoopla and the applause and the promises of great things to come. And indeed, great things have happened. The park had as its first tenant the Northwest Regional Data Center. And since then, the park has become the home to many other tenants, notably the National High Magnetic Field Laboratory, Danfoss Turbo Core, the list goes on and on. So let's talk a little bit about the current status of the park and what may lie ahead. So first, we welcome Ron Miller, Executive Director of Innovation Park. Ron, it is so good to see you, sir, and I loved your background. That's very apropos.
Thank you, Tom. We try to keep it as professional as we can, but yeah, thanks for having us. We're really grateful for the opportunity to come in and talk more about Innovation Park and what we're doing. So
thank you, sir. We'll get into that in just a second. I want to make sure we also have Michael Tentnowski, the Director of Entrepreneurship, who has a similar kind of background up on his screen there. Michael, hi, welcome.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. I'm always happy to talk about everything that we're doing at not only Innovation Park, but the North Florida Innovation Labs as well.
Very good. We shall get into that in great detail. We also welcome back, though this is the first time we've done a Zoom with you here, Kim Moore, who is the chair of the Board of Innovation Park and also has a few responsibilities out at Tallahassee Community College, as I understand it.
I know, just a few there. So glad to join you on a great subject today.
Okay, well, it's always good, guys, to defer to the board chair in any proceeding. Kim, just from your perspective on the board and also in that oversight capacity here for Innovation Park, what is kind of the, we all came up with mission statements and all that kind of thing. What are the guiding principles of Innovation Park?
You know, I'm so happy to talk about that because you brought with you today the history and the start and the groundbreaking. And it's great to know that the momentum is still there and we certainly have a bright trajectory. So in the governing role and thinking about the mission of what we're seeking to accomplish, we know that we cannot do it alone. So it speaks to collaboration, not only with local government, but also Florida State University, FAMU, and TCC, and that how we collaboratively establish a frame that looks at supporting startups, not only the growth, the attraction of private companies. I mean, we know that that is ideal and something that we need to have in order to diversify. But more importantly, when we think about what our role is for giving back to local residents, it's to create high wage jobs. Our focus is on that and doing that through innovation. So in a nutshell, Tom, that is certainly our mission.
Well, I guess we can defer then to the executive director. Ron Miller, how are we doing there? Are we meeting the proscriptions of that original concept of Innovation Park? Are we fulfilling the deed there?
You know, it's a never-ending process, but we have made significant progress over the number of years, and that includes the the progress that the universities have made in terms of the research facilities that have been brought in. There are 17 facilities in the park, about 1 million square feet. So from that standpoint, we've got the research side covered. We've also brought in the private company, the big private company, which is Danfoss Turbocore. And Danfoss is sort of our example of what can happen when you put private sector together with research. And they are taking advantage of their collaborations with the College of Engineering, with the Mag Lab, and with other facilities in the park to advance their own research and development. So from that standpoint, we're doing a lot of really good things, and there's more coming.
Well, just before the pandemic hit, I know, Ron, there was a major expansion that was just wrapping up over at Danfoss Turbocore, where they essentially took what was that parking area, they expanded the building for additional, I think, production capability into there. And then the pandemic hit, they had to cut back temporarily. But the last time I was by, I saw cars in the lot. Apparently, they are still functioning.
Yes, they are, and they've done an amazing job with the protocols to keep their facility up and operating. So they're continuing to manufacture. The new expansion is actually space for R&D. They've also got some space in there to show customers exactly what they're doing. They have their own little museum, and it's a great facility. They've got a ways to go on the second floor to finish the development of that, but at the end of the day, they've committed to create 120 jobs out of that expansion. So it's moved along. The facility is mostly done, but again, they've got a little work to do on the second floor.
And as Kim mentioned, of course, those are high-tech, high-paying jobs. These are certainly by no means minimum wage kinds of things. But I recall again from the great grand opening of the facility, there was much ado about, because at that time, Tallahassee wanted so much to be Austin, Texas. Oh, you could feel it. In fact, all of the leaders in the city, the county, the institutions of higher learning, the presidents of FSU and FAMU and TCC and the head of the Chamber of Commerce and the private and public sector all got together. I think there were, nearly 50 people in that entourage. They flew to Austin, Texas, and by gosh, they were going to learn the secrets to success and how the University of Texas at Austin had partnered with the private sector. And you had, I think Motorola had just completed a big plant. You also had something called, Control Data. They had a big presence there. Texas Instruments, of course, a whole bunch of names, big time names in high tech manufacturing and research and development. And my gosh, we were going to figure out how to do that. We didn't quite get there. Danfoss Turbocore certainly was a big addition to the portfolio at Innovation Park, as with the National High Magnetic Field Laboratory. But we wanted to make microchips like nobody's business. And even though we haven't done that, and Michael Tentnowski, this is where you come in here. How have we kind of switched that focus on bringing in big outside plants to fostering more local business, startups, that kind of thing at Innovation Park?
Well, that's a great question. And I think it's always nice to try to emulate another area that's done very well for itself and quite successful. But the main focus should be on the assets that are in the current market. And so I think that Tallahassee has rather unique assets with both universities and research institutions and laboratories that they can really look at a number of options to commercialize some of the technologies that are sitting on the shelves at the various places. And so you look at the Mag Lab, you look at FSU, you look at FAMU, and you say, what do they have that's ready to go on the shelf that can be taken by a lead entrepreneur and turned into a smaller business to start? And then hopefully that'll grow with some mentoring, coaching, and other programmatic services that we provide. And once those grow, if we get 100 of those versus one company with 1,000 employees, we're still achieving the same goal. It may take a little longer, but homegrown businesses, I think, are the way to go. And that's what we've been focusing on so far.
We have a number of entrepreneurial facilities here in town, Domi Station being one of those incubators I'm thinking of. There's one over on the east side of town. There are several others scattered around. What can Innovation Park do for folks that maybe those other facilities either don't want to get into or don't have the capability of doing that you folks can do?
So I think the main differential thing that we do is provide really the training, coaching, educational opportunities, and matchmaking for the hard sciences. So others may focus on other areas of entrepreneurship, but we really look at the assets that are within the park and try to parlay those into business opportunities. So I'll give you a couple of, for instance, we've got 5 members now. One is doing energy and intelligence systems and controls. One's working with lithium ion battery technology. One's working on software, but it's for the vision impaired and also helping those with autism and dyslexia and ADHD and things of that nature, using some hardware applications as well. And then we've got some really cool centrifuge technology that cools warm liquids down to ice cold within 60 seconds. We're also working with a company that miniaturizes CNC machines and other rapid prototyping machines. And we've got some interest from other groups that are looking to become members now. One's in high performing materials, which goes well with FSU's HPMI facility. We also have one working on medical devices, and we have a new one that just applied that's working in a number of areas in biotech, but they just launched a new COVID-19 testing facility. Of course, we're not going to bring that here, but we can certainly augment what they're doing. So there's a number of really cool technologies that are right now coming in as entrepreneurial ventures. But again, we'd like to match make with those that can take some of the technologies out of the labs.
And Tom, there's also a great opportunity to collaborate with those other organizations that you mentioned. You know, Domi has been a great partner of ours, and we are working really well together. We all play a little different role. Domi is probably looking at more early stage companies. We'll be looking at companies that are a little further along in their development. And then, as you may have heard, we're creating some new space in the next couple of years that will provide opportunities for some unique resources like wet labs and prototype development facilities, places to build things. I mean, this is going to be a groundbreaking facility, but that's what's going to be a little bit different about what some of the other folks are doing.
The last time I talked to Leon County Commissioner Kristen Dozier, who of course has a connection with Innovation Park very intimately there, she was telling me that a significant number of folks who have cut their academic teeth in Tallahassee and decided to pursue
Hey, Tom, we're not hearing you.
need. If you come out of FAM or FSU, you need this kind of facility. You don't have to haul your rear end 150 miles downstate.
Hey, Tom, we lost you there for a minute.
Okay, the question on that one, Ron, was in talking to Commissioner Dozier, she had indicated that because Gainesville already has a very well-equipped wet lab down there, a lot of folks graduating from FAMU, FSU, who wanted to pursue that kind of entrepreneurial course, had to go to Gainesville to do that sort of work. You guys will be able to provide that sort of facility here.
Yeah, about 5 years ago, maybe a little longer, we did a feasibility study that looked at exactly that problem. I mean, we saw, the evidence of people having to go other places, but we also wanted to see what we were missing in town, and that was one of the things that kind of stood out was the wet lab facilities with some business incubation services wrapped around it. So that's when we started the process to start looking at building our own incubator that would have some of those facilities. And I'm happy to say that a month ago we announced that we had received funding to start working on building that facility. And I'd
All
be
right,
happy
Kim
to
Moore.
talk more about that.
I bet you are. Kim Moore, the other aspect of all this, of course, as we look at promoting homegrown entrepreneurship, is that over the years, there have been sometimes some, should we say, less than amicable relationships between Florida State and Florida A&M University when it comes to Innovation Park. It looks like those problems have been squared away. And Tallahassee Community College, no stranger to you, of course, has been brought into the mix. So when people come out of any of those institutions, or a business would come to town and want to have a turnkey workforce provided for their business here, TCC, as well as FSU and FAMU, can be brought into that mix, right?
Absolutely. I think the relationships, that's certainly a strength when we think about the work of Innovation Park. Just more recently, we completed our strategic planning session and visioning for our board, and guess who we had join us, none other than President Robinson and President Thrasher. They participated in it. So they are all vested in the great work that we're doing. And I think, you were mentioning in your conversation to Ron and about students and, maintaining their presence here, but it's also about the researchers. We want to make sure that they have a facility that they can continue their work as well. So our North Florida Innovations Lab will do just that. And when you think about the 60+ million that was brought in terms of research dollars by those two institutions, and how that could only grow as a result of having the North Florida Innovations Lab, that's a bright star for what we're doing and for creating a workforce that is ready here to support whatever business we attract and or grow.
Between the time that we are recording this and the time it's being played back, I think there is something going on at Innovation Park that is designed to promote more entrepreneurship. And I don't know, Ron or Michael, whichever you guys want to jump in here, but it's where you're actually making some financial resources available for business development here in town. Can either one of you guys?
Yeah, I can talk about that. We're having our 9th annual Tech Grant Elevator Pitch Night, but this will be our first annual virtual elevator pitch night. Given the situation, we're going to be doing a Zoom webinar tomorrow night, which will be Wednesday, just before this airs. And two local companies will get a total of $25,000 in grants to help them move their technology-based business idea towards commercialization in Leon County. We started with 13 applicants. We've narrowed it down to 5. We've got a company that's doing mobile apps for reading comprehension and reading scores. We've got one that's doing augmented reality academic platforms to teach young students about magnetic fields of all things. We have a company that's doing some battery and capacitor design modeling. We've got an energy company doing intelligent systems and controls, and we've got a company called Weather Tiger, which many may be familiar reading in the paper about their meteorological predictive analytics. So 2 of those 5 companies are going to win some money, and hopefully that will help them become more successful in the future. And this whole process got delayed a little bit because of COVID. It's normally held in May, but those that didn't know about it are going to get another chance in January to apply again. We start the process all over for a May event next, hopefully in person next May. And then we're also, Michael's working on something a little different, and maybe he can talk about that, but how we're going to help people get through this process and provide this continuum of services that we want to offer. And I don't know if Michael wants to talk about the EEP program.
Yeah, so we've offered in the past the Entrepreneurial Excellence Program, and we've sort of changed it a little bit to be more technology focused. So now it's going to be an interesting program that'll have a number of segments that walks people through the very basics of how to start a business on through to how to do prototyping and then eventually find funding for the commercial marketplace. So we're, excuse me, we're hoping to use that program to feed not only the incubator, our incubator, but also the others where it may be appropriate, and then keeping folks in the community. So once they're able to figure out how to do production runs and all of the things that we'll be talking about that's unique to technology entrepreneurs, I think that's going to be a nice feeder for the tech grant program as well as spin out businesses.
And Kim Moore, that ties right into several other initiatives that have been cooking in this area for quite some time. The Choose Tallahassee thing is what I'm thinking of, that originally started as a motivator for more golden agers, as we're called, to relocate to Tallahassee and perhaps start another chapter in their lives instead of hanging out on the golf course or just kicking back and relaxing in retirement, to forge a new career, if you will, a second act, or in some cases a third act, if you want to put it that way, and maybe start a new business that may have high-tech capability, especially if these people came from high-tech backgrounds in their workaday career before they got here. So that ties into that too, doesn't it?
It certainly ties into that, making sure that we are a destination for innovation, regardless of where you are in your life cycle, whether it's the more mature and going to the third act or not, but making sure that we have the resources to support that. And if you're not interested in starting a business, the great thing that I love about the work we're doing now, you can still contribute. We have advisory councils, you can become a mentor. I mean, just a variety of different ways that you could use that knowledge. So I think there's no wrong term for the work that we're doing at Innovation Park. And again, making it a place that with all the resources that are available, you can achieve going from the lab to the market, which is what we want to see happen.
We are talking to Ron Miller, Michael Tentnowski, both in the administrative office out at Innovation Park. Kim Moore is the chair of the board of that organization. And you are listening to, and if you are accessing us via Facebook, also watching the program called Perspectives. And if you miss any or part of a Perspectives program or in total, it's all available online, not only on our WFSU.org website, but especially our WFSU Public Media Facebook page that has all other kinds of great goodies on that. We try to have the most recent program up on both platforms as soon as we can. As it airs on the radio and also as it appears on our Facebook page, which is put out concurrently with that. We have already mentioned some of the great success stories at Innovation Park over the past, my gosh, nearly 50 years. But Ron Miller, are there any others that we're missing here that you could bring to the attention of folks and say, oh my God, I didn't know that that had actually gotten its birth at Innovation Park and gone on to do wonderful things?
Well, you know, there is an organization that actually came out of our tech grant program, which is Biofront Technologies, and that company is still in town. It is still growing and doing some amazing things. You may have heard of them. They produce a tree nut allergen test kit. That's you know, one of the most obvious ones since I've been here. There are others, particularly on the smaller companies, and maybe Michael can talk a little bit more about some that he's worked with and heard about that he can elaborate on.
Well, one is interestingly enough working in our wet lab now in our current facility, where Corey Bio is doing protein analysis for a number of different companies from around the country, but also internationally as well. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, they pivoted to provide hand sanitizers for those in need. And so he serves mostly nonprofits. He's also a main supplier to FSU, and he's doing them by the gallon jugs. So they're not just little squirt bottles. He's mass producing these this hand sanitizer. So that's certainly another one. And then on the assistance side, I think there's so many to talk about. I wouldn't know how to single out any. We've got folks that are working on stroke victim manipulation of robotics with their digits to help them with drop foot and some arm manipulation. That's pretty exciting. They're very close to receiving some federal monies to pursue that. Big interest with the National Institute of Health to help these stroke victims. We've certainly assisted with companies that are working in the diabetic sensor technology, We've worked with a number of really startup companies that are ready to just take off. I'm talking to one now that's in the defense arena that has come up with a sort of rail gun. I can't talk about it because it is military proprietary information, but it's a pretty amazing technology that may be picked up by the Air Force. And that's where we're starting to really branch out and get other partners involved. Because when I talk about entrepreneurs, whether they're young entrepreneurs or they're the third stage entrepreneurs, they have the opportunity through our connections to reach out to FSU, FAMU, NASA, the Air Force. We've also worked with the Department of Agriculture. These technologies are sitting on the shelf, and if we can pair them with an experienced entrepreneur that can take them to market, I think that's a great opportunity. I know Kim said, you know, they may not want to start a business or they don't have their own innovation. These innovations are available. And we also have a whole suite of innovations that are available to us through the military, through something called TechLink. And we're in partnership with them so we can provide pre-screened technologies that are available to be commercialized.
It's funny that you should mention the development of a super sophisticated advanced artillery piece, Michael. I read an article just 2 days ago about the development of a gun that could bring back the old battleship from World War II, except instead of throwing a projectile some 23 miles, this projectile would have the range of an intermediate range ballistic missile, say 1900 miles. I have no earthly idea how that might work, but it sounds like the kind of thing that you're referencing here as far as pushing that envelope of development forward with what you guys can bring to the table.
Well, that is an interesting technology because the one that I'm referring to actually is magnetic based, where it takes a electronic pulse through magnetized systems without using a propellant to launch things great distances, I'll say. So that's very interesting technology. I'm glad you're aware of it.
That is, well, that's it. And everything is changing day by day. The pace of innovation has just accelerated to the point of who can know what is coming up when and where. Kim Moore, this also brings us to, again, how do you increase those links, those partnerships with our institutions of higher learning? Everyone's at the table already talking. Is there any way to make that even more cohesive and effective as you guys look at how this is all organized?
Absolutely. So we are working strategically with each of our stakeholder partners, and that includes the Office of Economic Vitality, which they are a great partner, to make sure that our messaging is going out to each of those groups. We know that we have some individual stakeholder groups, but we want some collective ones so that everyone has access, has an awareness. And I think the other piece of what you'll see as we go forward as Innovation Park is making sure that we are absolutely engaging with our community. So it's not just about our institutions of higher learning, but the community as a whole. We really need for them to understand that this is an asset that belongs to them. We need for our businesses to understand that this is a resource and tool that will allow them to grow. But at the same time, we're also, leaving the light on, if you will, for new businesses to come into the area and be attracted. Mm-hmm.
Ron Miller, you talked about the impact of the pandemic on the operation of several piece parts of the park. What's the current occupancy like? Many places, including our own station, have cut way back on the number of people there. And at one time you had something like 1,200 people working out of Innovation Park. Is that number slowly rebounding now, or where do we stand?
It is. A lot of it is university driven. So whatever the policies are of the universities, that's what they're following in the research facilities. So other than Danfoss, who I've mentioned, they're not at full capacity, but I think they're getting there. It's almost business as normal, but not quite there.
Okay, and that leads us to, as far as looking ahead, you still have expansion room in Innovation Park. You are by no means chock-a-block full up, despite that big old neighbor that's a golf course. It's right next
Yeah.
door. But you can expand should the need arise, right?
Yeah, we can a little bit, not as much as we used to. So one of the things that we've done is we've sort of carved up the vacant land to the universities, between the two universities and ourselves. And what we have left right now, that's not committed to another project, is about 10 acres within the park. That's all. We have another 18 acres that's outside the park. But the rest of it is trying to figure out how we can work with the universities to bring their lease land. It's all state lease land for the most part. And how can we bring that land into play so that we can use it to attract private companies that can further collaborate with the universities on whatever interests them. So yes, we have room to expand. We also have office space that's available. We've got about 21,000 square feet available, and we really need to lease that. As some people may know, we don't get any tax dollars, so all of our operating funds comes from leasing offices. For the most part, we have 5 buildings, so we're very interested in doing that. And Kim mentioned the Office of Economic Vitality, and what's really important in that collaboration is that they serve as the marketing arm for the community, but they're also our marketing arm. We're not duplicating resources in that regard. A big part of their strategic plan is how can they leverage the applied research and manufacturing clusters in the community to attract companies. So we're working very closely with them to see how we can market that office space to R&D focused companies. And then also how can we work on the land development so that it's attractive to companies who may want to relocate to the community.
Given the volatility of the international situation, and it becomes a big political football. We're not going to go there, but there may be folks who heretofore may have been inclined to say, well, we can do our production at a lower cost offshore. Nowadays, it may be more secure and easier for us to do it domestically. Michael, does that give facilities like Innovation Park a little bit of a leg up on the international competition, because you can go to a prospective client and say, look, we can provide you everything that you need right here. You do not have to offshore. And people like Kim can go ahead and get the workforce all trained and ready to go. So when you guys come to town, we're ready for you.
Yeah, it's so specialized that it's hard to say that we have everything ready, but we do have a couple of businesses that were going to go overseas that have decided now to do their production, not only in the US, but they want to do it in the Tallahassee area. And so we need things like injection molding, we need things like assembly line development, and it depends on the company again. And so I think we're able to rapidly get to the point where we can accommodate those folks and start growing some more of those manufacturing type jobs here. But certainly the R&D is what we focus on. And so I think that's where we can be the most advantageous to anyone looking for as a prospect. But some of the other things that I think make us unique is we've talked about facilities. We really haven't talked about programmatic services. And what our services provide in incubation and acceleration are mostly customized to whatever need is out there. But because we have an exceptional advisory group that has subject matter experts that are outstanding, those become mentors, coaches, as well as myself as management to talk to these companies. And I hesitate to call it hand-holding because some are rather advanced, but they may need financing, they may need specialized equipment, they may need professorial expertise, or they may need access to the College of Engineering, FAMU, FSU College of Engineering, which has 2,500 students available to do projects with. And so close proximity to them. We also do a lot of specialized programs that is designed to bring in money to the area, such as the SBIRS TTR program. That's the Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Tech Transfer program that the federal government through 11 agencies provide. And that's an annual $3.2 billion fund that's available for small businesses to tap into. It's science and engineering and other technologists, but that's a huge amount of money. And so I've been putting on quite a few programs on the SBIRS TTRs. We also do the NSFI Core program, where I was trained up at Georgia Tech to provide a customer discovery for companies. So they have some assistance there. And then, of course, any kind of grant searching and federal budget proposals, we do programs that address that as well. And then we're working on financing for these companies. How do you get the gap financing? So been working with angel groups, a number of VCs. And so those are the things that we can really bring to the table in addition to the facilities, not only our current one, but the 40,000 square foot facility we'll be building in a couple of years.
You talked about financing, and that, according to everyone who is in economic development, says is very often the stumbling block for any existing or new business that wants to put a new footprint in the ground is, where does the funding come from? And so you're saying that Innovation Park has access to that kind of capital, so that someone comes in and says, look, I will do this if I can get the financing. And you guys say, well, look, we'll try to scare you up a package of that.
Well, we have access to the people that have access to the funding. But certainly I've always told people, if you've got a good idea, we can get you funded. Because it doesn't matter anymore where the venture capital groups are at. If we don't have a plethora of them in Tallahassee, it really doesn't matter. I have a lot of folks and contacts that are interested in new technologies in the hard science that are calling me and saying, hey, what do you have? What's fresh, what's new? And then we do have a small group of angels that work together locally, and they've funded at much smaller amounts, but they've funded a couple of companies. And quite frankly, I wish I could announce it, but it's not, well, it will be Thursday. One of our companies that we've been assisting is going to be on a major network selling their product. And so that's very exciting. That's coming up shortly. So yeah, there's funding is available, but you have to have the great idea, you have to have the right team, and you have to have the business plan that shows the financials for growth to the point that it is a fundable proposition.
Those sorts of things, Kim Moore, those sorts of success stories are really what can be the driving force as we move ahead with the history of Innovation Park, as other organizations nationwide, maybe even internationally, say, oh, that sounds like a good deal and a good location for what we want to do.
You are exactly right. I know when Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross, who was down recently handing off, if you will, the big check, that in and of itself created a major buzz, and I believe will be the starting point for even other conversation. Our intention is to tell the stories that Michael is sharing with you today, that innovation does live here. Innovation does live at Innovation Park. That is the destination, and we want them to be a part of it, whether you have the idea or maybe you have the business. That is where we want to live. And I think by creating and making sure these services are available, you don't have to look elsewhere. You literally only have to go into, well, basically your neighbor asset. So, and we are that neighbor asset. So really great things going on, and we intend to tell the story. So we know that we will partner well with you in getting the word out.
We will certainly stand by there. And Michael, I'll put it this way, since we're time shifting everything, after we do the show here, I'll call you up and you can give me more details and leak some more good information on that news development. Okay, that'll work. Ron Miller, we all know, though, that an army marches on its stomach, and you guys have been talking about having some food choices for the tenants at Innovation Park for years and years. Where do we stand with that? You guys going to have a food court anytime soon?
You know, that's probably not going to happen real soon. We do have daily food trucks. At least we will as soon as the employment comes back on a regular basis. But food is driven based on numbers, and it's having enough people in the park. So the more employers and employees we can attract to the park, the more likelihood we'll be able to sustain a standalone food option. We do have a building in mind to renovate, but it's still too early especially given the COVID situation, to take a look at that. The good news is across the street from you is the golf course, and I believe they've opened their food operation as well. So hopefully that gives another option in addition to the food trucks. But we'll keep an eye on the situation and try to get to a point, hopefully with employment levels, that we can bring in another food option.
Well, I know all of my compadres at WFSU love the Seminole Grill over at the Veller Golf Course, but it's nice to have diversity in the diet. So we'll keep an eye on
and
that.
we are working on one other amenity that may help in that regard. It's not in the park, but we are coming up with something called Park Perks, and we're working with some local businesses to provide discounts to people who work at Innovation Park. So look for that to come out as soon as we start getting back to normal operations in our food service operations around the city.
Also a nice 0.6 of a mile walking trail around that pond there back behind the Mag Lab. That is, we talk about a little green gem. That is a gorgeous amenity for folks who work at Innovation Park, just to get out and enjoy nature, a little exercise, and that's very nice too.
Yeah, we opened that last fall, and it is just one of the pieces of the puzzle in trying to attract companies and their employees. You know, you need a certain amount of amenities that make the place attractive, and that was just, again, one piece of the puzzle to try to help make it interesting back there. And I love it as well. It's awesome.
Well, we're headed towards the final 10 minutes of the presentation right here. Michael Tentnowski, where we go from here as far as attracting new entrepreneurship, new enterprises, new businesses that want to locate ideally an Innovation Park and become full-fledged tenants. How do you go about doing that, stirring the pot, getting more interest out there, based not only on the past successes, but what you have planned for the future?
Well, I think awareness campaigns is part of it. I know that I've gotten a couple of inquiries as the EDA grant was announced. Certainly what you're doing here today will help drive some prospects. But also, I think working with our partners certainly helps. I know that FAMU, through the REACH program, has brought in a number of folks. We also work with the Small Business Development Center at FAMU. FSU is on our advisory group that sends out all of our information to the professors that are doing disclosures, as well as FAMU. We also work with folks, again, in the partnership arena, such as the Center of Innovation at TCC downtown, where if it's not appropriate for that location and they can benefit from the assets at the park, they've referred folks over to us and vice versa. So I think really that whole partnership, agreements, arrangements, all of the things that is making that happen, getting away from the silos and knowing that if one of us wins, we all win. I think that really helps. DOMI has been good about referring folks to us as well. We've partnered with them on a couple of grants, FAMU on a couple of grants. But really the big answer is through the Small Business Innovation Research program that I talked about, because once you win one of those awards, the first phase is up to $225,000, but phase 2 brings in 1.7 million, up to 1.7 million. And that's when those companies, and I've worked with about 20 of them now in the last 4 months, that's when those companies now have the financial wherewithal to say, let me move into the park and continue to take advantage of not only the programmatic services we provide, but all of the researchers, professorial, and student help they can get as well. So I think that's the way. It's a very slow process, but once it starts to pay off, it parlays that, and success breeds success, and more stories get out there, and all of a sudden you're going to be at capacity. And so I've got 2 years to fill a 40,000 square foot facility, and that's going to give me at least enough time for some of these SBIRs, TTRs to hit with these companies.
People don't realize the importance of that kind of mechanism for jump-starting the growth. And Kim Moore, you just, hey, last week, $250,000 grant coming from the USDA to Jim Bellamy down at the Frenchtown Farmers Market. Talk about a huge windfall, but giving that organization the capability to expand both geographically and also to do some new programmatic things that he's been looking at for years and years. these folks have to do the same thing with Innovation Park to keep those funding sources coming to try to get more interest and involvement in their place, right?
You're exactly right. The ability to get those startup dollars, just like as we're getting right now with the North Florida Innovations Lab, that will spur the growth. It will allow us to continue to serve and carry out the work that Michael has already talked about. But again, you think about our country, our local area, our state, it's built on the backs of small businesses. So though it's not the large companies, we're realizing and concentrating that honestly, it can happen right here in our backyard by making sure that we have the proper support. And as Michael called it, customizing, I call it, it's a tailored solution for growing business and creating that economic development spur or startup that we want to have happen. So yeah, it's very exciting to do that. And it's also very exciting to know that we have the support that we're providing our local businesses and those from afar.
We have talked about so many great things today here, folks, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Just a few moments left, so why don't we give everybody just a couple minutes to do a quick wrap up of anything that you think we have not touched on that is important in the present and future development of our very own Innovation Park. Let's talk to the head guy first here, Ron Miller. Anything else?
Yeah,
we've
talked kind of around the edges, but we really haven't talked about the grant that we just received from the Economic Development Administration. So it's a $10.2 million grant to build this 40,000 square foot incubator. And we also have two other partners that are working with us to make it a total of $17 million for this 40,000 square foot incubator. We are so excited about this. We've been working on this for about 5 years or more to put all the pieces and parts together through multiple applications. Michael's been a big part of the success of getting this grant. Just hiring Michael and getting him on board and getting all the programs and processes started has been phenomenal. But we've got about 17 months left to get this thing to groundbreaking. And then we'll have a total of 30 months to complete the construction. So we are in the process of going out to hire an architect, and we are going to be moving at rapid pace to get this thing built as quickly as possible so that we can realize the dream of this incubator that we've been working on for so long.
And then Michael Tentnowski, all you have to do is rent it out. Piece of cake.
Just get it rented. And my other 2 cents, if I may, is we were also fortunate enough to get a much smaller grant. It's not quite 17 million, but the Knight Foundation provided us a $35,000 grant to provide lab equipment that we don't currently have. So it's going to be shared use machines and equipment that was provided by the Knight Foundation. So very grateful for that.
And I did want to mention that we received $2.5 million from the FSU Research Foundation and $2.5 million from the Office of Economic Vitality to go along with the $1.8 million that the authority is putting into the project. So everyone's involved in this, and we're trying to get more people involved as well.
Once again, hewing back to that concept that the financing is such a critical part of all this, and this is not general revenue tax money that's being used here. These are all dedicated funds from other sources. Looks like, Kim Moore, once again, you get the last word here today.
You get the last word. So of course, we've had a great time with you today, but I want to push home the point that Innovation Park is for everyone. So we want to invite businesses out, come and look at the space, community in general. It really is that destination, and it's ours. So not just the Mag Lab, not just Dan Foss, but I want them to see the opportunity, because it really is, just by virtue of what Michael has talked about, it's the future, and the future is right here. So thank you for the opportunity, and we're excited about what we're going to do at Innovation Park.
We're excited about all the real news that came out of today's Perspectives programs. Ron Miller, Executive Director of Innovation Park, Michael Tentnowski, Director of Entrepreneurship, and the Chair of the Board, Kim Moore. Thank you all for being on Perspectives. All the best, good luck, and I hope at some point we'll all be able to get back together for that grand tour that we keep talking about, hopefully around the time you guys do the, or before you do the groundbreaking for that exciting new facility that is on deck soon at Innovation Park. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Perspectives produced by WFSU Public Media in Tallahassee. Our thanks going out to Taylor Cox, Paul Dam, Amy Diaz de Villegas, Devin Bittner, Tricia Moynihan, and Lydell Rawls. our Director of Content, Kim Kelly, for setting up our Zoom interfaces and keeping that on track. And I'm Tom Flanigan. Next week, as we head towards Halloween, we'll investigate some real ghost stories that have their origins in Florida's capital city. It'll be spooky, it'll be wonderful, and we'll talk about it all next week right here on Perspectives. Take care.